investing in multifamily in particular, or investing in real estate, there are a lot of different coaches, systems, communities to participate. One of my favorites, Jen and Stacy. But most importantly, I think they have a lot of fun along the way. I always enjoy having them. We had them on the show a few months ago. They're here again. Welcome to Jen and Stacy. By the way, switch them. It's Stacy on the left as you look at it, Jen on the right. But that's just how they roll. So we're going to leave it like that. How you guys doing today?
We are awesome.
Great.
We're doing.
You are awesome. No, we knew you're awesome when we booked you again as a repeat. So give me a little background. How'd you guys get into real estate investing?
Ooh, do you want to kick off?
Sure. So
Yeah.
we started, both of us started about 20 years ago, just in different arenas. We weren't together that far back. But for me, it just started with, I went to Tony Robbins thing. It was just about 20 years ago, like right now, 20-year anniversary. And I just started realizing that there was just more. There was more to life. There was more to purpose. There was more to everything than climbing the corporate ladder, which I was doing fervently. And so it got me seeking, and I ended up landing in, real estate investing just made sense to me. It's super logical as a way to build wealth and create freedom. So that's where it started for me. It was Tony Robbins.
Her story is way more structured than mine, but we started at the same time, didn't know each other yet, but my brother picked me up to go to the store, and we ended up driving around, and he said, we're driving for dollars. And that's how that started. And 6 hours later, we were making offers on properties that we didn't understand. Right. So that's how I got kicked off. But I spent 22 years in corporate America climbing the ladder, only to find out it was on the wrong wall. And it wasn't until about 2015, I spent 12 years grinding through slow motion and of real estate on the side hustle. And then eventually in 2015, just stopped and went full time with it. So it was kind of a side hustle to begin with. Then I got serious.
I got in real estate because my brother and I went to lunch, and on the way back, he said, well, can you mind if I stop at an office along the way? And here I am 36 years later in real estate. So brothers, a good thing to have a brother, and
apparently
good relationship with him. So, okay. So let's talk about real estate investing. We had last had you on last year when it was just moving so fast. People were just throwing money in the air. It came back to them times 5. Nowadays, it's not quite like that, is it?
No.
Nope. We've been waiting for this for a while. We've been waiting for the landscape to change, and it's this shift it's definitely happened in many markets.
Yeah, we had to get creative with the 96 unit that we just acquired.
Yeah.
It's not conventional financing by any means. It's definitely seller carry, and those types of deals, they're just something that you're really going to be looking for, and you find the unicorn deals. But it's not like it was last summer. Not even a little.
And so my guess is your deals require a little less competition, but a little more creativity, knowledge, and elbow grease per deal, right?
Yeah. Honestly, Bill, it really is going to depend on what people are trying to focus on when they're getting started, because we work in the world of multifamily, meaning 2 to 4 units or apartment buildings. And the 96 unit is the one that we just most recently closed. But probably the biggest adjustment that when we're talking to people are like, look, don't sit on the sidelines, because you're going to be sitting for a long time. Like, we are just at the beginning of what has been coming for years. COVID, in my opinion, just delayed. It delayed the inevitable. We're in the inevitable now. Don't sit on the sidelines for years. You just have to adjust. We used to teach people, like, look, you're going to, when you're underwriting your deals, well, for small multi-unit, we were like, go for $250 cash flow. I'm not telling them that anymore. It's like, look, you want to make sure you're at least at 1.3 DSCR, that you have enough cash flow to make it worth it. Your
whoa. 1.3 DSCR. DSCR stands for?
Okay, so DSCR is the debt service coverage ratio. So when someone's looking at a deal, the lenders are the ones who have this 1.3 debt service coverage ratio requirement. Jen and I, we require a higher DSCR for ourselves, but basically that ratio is how much money is coming in from the property. So you have revenues minus expenses, and that's your net operating income. The relationship between that net operating income and whatever the debt service is. So mortgage payment is another way of saying debt service. You want that to be at least 1.3 for most banks. Most banks are not going to lend if you're not hitting at least that. We prefer ours to be a little bit higher. The whole thing is that right now, what Jen and I have done, what we teach is what we practice. It's all the same thing. the deals are going to be a little bit skinnier now. But the reality is, for everything that we're continuing to acquire right now, if we waited another 2 or 3 years and someone else acquired it, that's wealth we could have been building. That's rents we could have been increasing and improving. That's properties we could have been adding value to. And if you're doing nothing, you're going to be years behind.
Well, not only that, but inflation's going to kill the money you have in reserves that isn't at work. So there's so many reasons why.
So you mean the money in my money market account isn't going to provide wealth for me 10 years from now?
I mean,
at a snail's pace?
Your money market account, I guess it depends on what kind of interest rate you're getting, if it's keeping up with inflation. But
it's not. So hold on one cotton picking moment. Are you saying to me that if you have a property,
cotton picking, my goodness,
I gotta blow the. I wish I had a penalty flag on you guys to stop you, because you're just like a wealth of knowledge. I'm getting fire hosed here. So what you're saying is, if I could summarize what Jen said, Jen's on the right, even though her name's on the left on the thing. What Jen just said, and then Stacy goes 1.5. When you said 1.3 DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, it sounds like what you're saying to me is, if you have a property that after all the expenses, interest, taxes, management, vacancy factor, gardener, water, whatever may come up, nails, paper clips, paper, that if I get $130 net per unit per house, that you're going to only spend $100 to cover the loan or the whole, and then what happens with the last $30? That is,
well, it's cash flow, but one thing that you threw in there that would not be in there is the interest, because interest would be part of the debt service, but everything else, that's right. So let's make it easy numbers. If your debt service is $1,000 a month, we would want $1,300 at a minimum, $1,300 a month after paying all the expenses.
Everything else.
So you're
$1,300, you pay them $1,000. What happens to the last $300?
That's last $300. Well, that's your car payment. Yeah. I guess it depends on what kind of car you get.
That's not a car payment anymore. No. Yeah. It's your cell phone bill.
Okay, but that's your return on your investment, right? So you put maybe money down to get the property, and that's your return on your investment, right? And so then the next question I would ask is, okay, so if you could get a property at 130 or 150 DSCR, debt service cash flow ratio, what kind of down payment do you have to put down, and what would that return have to be to make sense for you? Obviously, if I put 90% down, I have a very low loan, I'll get a lot of rents, I'll have a lot of money left over, but I'm out 90% down payment. That doesn't make sense for most cases. So how do you adjust that, or how do you guys look at that, and how do you teach investors that?
So one of the things that we teach our students is, look, there's no one thing. It's cash flow, it's debt service coverage ratio, and it's definitely cash on cash return. So when we're looking at a deal, it depends on the type of deal. So when we are looking at real estate, we will kind of summarize it into two main strategies: stabilized and value add. Value add has more risk to it. There should also be more reward to it. That actually is my favorite ones to do, because we get a good cash on cash return. I'll put some numbers to it in a minute. With stabilized deals, you're usually paying market value for it, because the seller, they have something to offer you. It's already cash flowing, it's already working. So
it's already renovated, it's already painted, it's already cleaned up. Everybody's in there, they're all happy, they're writing checks.
Yeah, the work's already been done. So I mean, in general, if you can get 8 to 10% cash on cash return, like that's probably pretty solid. That's not that appealing to us. It's not that sexy, but right now, if you can get 8% with these interest rates, you know what? You're in a good position, because at some point the interest rates are going to go back down. You could refinance, and your cash flow is going to go up like crazy.
Number one, and number two, at some point the rents go up.
Oh, yeah, and if you're staying on top of, this is one of the huge mistakes that people make in real estate. If you're staying on top of increasing your rents every year, paying attention to what's going on in the market, doing your incremental increases, then yeah, your rent, your cash flow is also going up. Right. Of course, it could stay the same because your property taxes might go up too. So
oops.
The whole point is
there's taxes on the property. What?
There's taxes on my property.
We don't like that part. But like with a value add deal, we're definitely looking at the return on investment has to be a lot higher. It's got to be, it's on average for us, it's like 15 to 25 and sometimes higher %. But it also takes longer to get to cash flow. Oftentimes we're dealing with renovation and contractors and all the headaches that come along with that. And that's just, that's the benefit that we get out of it is the higher return. The price we pay is having to deal with
the risk.
Yeah, the risk and the pain in the butt factor.
PETA.
So 8%, but plus there's benefits, right? There's there's rent should go up over time. There's a property should appreciate over time. The loan balance is paid down over time. There's the tax advantages of how you manage that property. The challenge we have today is you can invest money in 6-month T-bills, right? A 6-month commitment. There are people, I don't know, I've done a lot of things for 6 months. I was on a diet for 6 months. It worked well. And you get 4.9% today.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to write you a check for $50,000 or $100,000 to buy a property, or I can sit on 4.9%, kind of guaranteed in a sense, depending on your politics, maybe not, but basically pretty secure by most standards. So it's got to be 8% or higher, whereas maybe a year ago when that rate was 2%, you could do deals at 5 or 6% plus benefits and get away with it, right? So that's what's changed in the market.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there needs to be a bigger spread to make it. Although even then, I don't think we ever would have done a deal that's lower than 8% return. I don't even think we've done a deal at 8%, only 8% return in years.
Yeah.
But even then, and the difference is right now, like just aligning our expectations, because we can either sit here and be like, oh, that stinks that our cash flow is lower. I'm just not going to buy it because it's lower cash flow. Or we can acquire more units. We can acquire more assets that we have control over. We have the ability to raise the rents. We have the ability to control, like, what is the condition of the property? And 2-3 years from now, then that turns into 5 and 10 years from now, we're in such a better position. We've got mortgage pay down. We have appreciation on the property. Right. Assuming, well, over 10 years, it should definitely appreciate. 2 to 3 years, just depends on what happens in the market. Yeah. So even comparing to 5%, if I'm putting my money into a 5% return, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that as a way to diversify. I just don't think that that's a good way to build wealth long-term, because I don't even know if you're keeping up with inflation doing that. But there's nothing wrong. You should always have money that's sitting there making, unfortunately, nothing or very low return, because it's that rainy day factor. You never know what's going to come up when you're going to need it. We never tell people you should put all your money into real estate. But if you want an avenue that's going to appreciate over time, provide cash flow, and create ultimately freedom down the line and retirement, real estate, in my opinion, is it's the safest asset. But we don't say you should put everything into all eggs in one basket.
No, the truth is this, like, not that we're lying, but the fact is this, that historically real estate has been the place to put your money. It just historically has performed year over year over year, right. Decade over decade, right. With the exception of 2008, which, 2008's crash was caused by all of the loans and all of that crap that was going on. But the inventory back then was huge. It was like over 3 million. And now it's like, just under 800,000. So it's different now than it was then. And I think that some folks, they think, oh God, these interest rates are so high. Should I wait? Should I get in? Like, what do I do? And then you look back at 1987 when the interest rates were like, I don't know, double digits, 15, 18%. I believe it was about 18% when I was a teenager and my dad was complaining about it when we were buying a house. And I didn't go through back then. Obviously, I was 13 back then. But I do remember my dad always talking about real estate and the interest rates and how crazy they were. But they were still involved. People were still doing it. And I think that what we try to teach people is don't listen to the fear mongering that's happening in the headlines. Yes, there's been several consecutive interest rate hikes. And all you have to do is try and figure out what will the interest rate be later if I intend to refinance something, right? But you should still get in the game. And it's just a mindset shift that we're trying to make sure that we're spreading that word.
We'll see investors. So, okay, we got, I kind of neglect the chat box here. I got a bunch of great questions. I have more questions myself, but this is meant to be participative. So if you have questions, here's your chance to jump in with Jen and Stacy, who are not only expert investors themselves, but coaches who deal with people every day. I just want passing mention, they were a little slow on the uptake as far as sharing their information. Maybe they don't want you guys to find out where they are. But you can find them at mfiacademy.com. Multifamily, I'm not sure even what that. Remote.
Multifamily Investing Academy.
It's this REMFIA.
Yeah, so
Boom.
there's that. And if you want to find out more information about them, that's one place you can go. And otherwise, they've been a little stingy with me with the links because I don't know, maybe they don't like my crowd or something. So we'll figure out what that's about. Let's see. So on let's see, YouTube, can you seriously find that Los Angeles? So here's a question. You guys don't invest particularly in California. You're not in California, and you don't look for deals in California.
No.
Question is, can you find a 5%, an 8% cash on cash return deal in California? And the answer is, of course you can. The question is, how much down payment do you need?
Right. How much capital are you willing to put out there?
That
And-
would be tough.
And the reason why we have low rates is California is more of an appreciation market where rather than just cash flow, people buy here because there's only so much coastal land and they are buying it on the expectation that not only they get money monthly, they're going to get more of their benefit in the long run as far as appreciation. I'm not investing in California. I live here. I want to diversify, number one. Number two, I can't believe how we treat landlords. So I'm investing in other states like Texas and Florida. But the answer is you can't always find a deal like that. It's just how much money down and whether you want to do that. In Beverly Hills, your cap rates can be like 3 or 4%, but you're buying in Beverly Hills, California. And if you believe that's a place to save your money, then that's great. And then what do you think about those people who would sell, however, they don't want to lose the 3% fixed returns? So that's from Carl. Great question. I believe the number one growth of real estate sales and investors that's underused right now as a strategy for business people is subject to, because we have more people than ever with rates that are below market, with people with intense demand to buy property. But there's always catches as far as due on sale clauses and how it gets transferred. Do you guys see that happening in the multifamily market? As far as people buying property where the seller has a low rate, they refinanced a year and a half ago, they really don't want to keep the property. There's great equity there.
It really is going to be one of the most profitable strategies that there is right now. And in the property that we most recently closed on, that would happen to be a big one or bigger one, a 96 unit. I say big compared to like a quad or something, but the 96 unit, the way that the financing went on that, we didn't go to conventional bank. The seller had 4.5% interest, and it wasn't exactly this. The financing structure ended up being a little bit more complex than this, but I'll explain it in more simpler terms. It was almost like a wraparound mortgage. So the seller has their mortgage at 4.5%. They basically lent us 80% of the purchase price. So we only put down 20% on that 96 unit, which is unheard of for a property that size, but they have 4.5% interest right here. And we have a new mortgage at 5% that wraps around it. So every month we pay the seller. Can you point to the outside hand for me?
This one?
No, the outside
This
one.
one?
Yeah. We pay the seller 5%.
It's so funny you got the wrong hand. That's just so funny. It's like you practice that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So we pay him 5%, and then he pays his bank 4.5%.
Oh, this is
Beautiful.
the bank over here.
Yeah, that was the bank over there. There's the wraparound mortgage. So
Right.
it wasn't exactly structured like that. It was more complex, but that's the underlying what was happening there. We're paying him 5%, which is great for us because an interest rate we went to a bank right now, plus all of the fees, it would have been a lot more expensive. Plus, in a million years, we would never get 80% financing on a 96 unit.
Right.
Maybe 65%
Wow.
on a good day, probably more like 60%. So that's what I think creative financing is subject to wraparound mortgages, land contracts where that's a thing, is really going to be an area where you could get some great deals. And ultimately, if you can't find that, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means make sure you crunch your numbers and that your numbers still make sense. You have to go with conventional financing for a couple of years, cool. But anytime you can ask for seller financing in any way, that's going to be great because people have these lower interest rates.
Yeah.
I'd love to see, I don't know if you know the numbers off the top of your head on that deal. What's the monthly difference between the way you did it and if you went to get financing today, and how much down payment versus what you put down? My guess is you both saved money on the downstroke, and you probably are getting a better monthly payment as well. And so you made that property worth more to you so the terms made it more valuable. And therefore you could pay a little bit more to the seller to get the price that he wants, right? And that's how it worked out.
Yeah. And although we didn't end up paying the seller more, which was shocking given
well,
that.
more than you otherwise might have. I mean, whatever it is you paid him, you would have paid less if you had to get regular financing. It was worth
the deal wouldn't have worked, actually.
It would not have worked
by definition.
We had to put down 1.9 million for that. It was 9.5 purchase price. We put down 1.9 million, and that was for 20% down. Realistically, in the market, we would have put down 40%.
Right.
So it means it would have been 3.8 million. We did that. It was a syndicated deal. So we raised capital from other passive investors who are partners with us in the deal. And basically the numbers never would have worked out.
Right.
We couldn't offer enough return to make people choose that over a CD.
Way. Yeah.
And so in a market with tight inventory, you created a piece of inventory that otherwise wouldn't close. I think, to me, I don't know if or when you could take that deal and say, here's how we did it with the real numbers. You could hide the address. And here's how we otherwise would have had to, and do the comparison, because the answer
That's a great idea.
That is a good idea.
That's a really cool idea.
I'd love to interview you and walk you through that, because I think when people see the power of what you did, I don't mean to criticize you, but you make it seem very nonchalant and very, well, that's what we did. Okay. Like, well, I put my hair in a bun. Well, I don't know how to do that. I never had hair long enough for one, but you say it, but to me, that's so valuable that a student can bring you a deal that's close. And if I had a deal that was close, the whole gap in sales is the seller wants too much and the buyer wants to pay too little. You close the gap. One way is terms. And I think that's just the magic that you guys do. And I just want to draw attention to it to say that's what you want to learn how to do. And I think there's going to be more of that than ever, because as people learn that, they go, well, hold it. This guy doesn't want to sell because he thinks his property's worth this, and the buyers think it's worth this. But I think it's worth this if I can get him to accept. And by the way, you're paying him only 5%. He'd probably rather have 5% on that property than in T-bills, because he knows the property. He loves the property. He doesn't really know the U.S. Treasury Department, what they're going to do with it. If you guys don't pay him, he gets the property back at a big discount. He doesn't pay taxes until you pay him the principal. So to the seller, it's a win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah,
on every level.
It was such a great deal.
That's why I think
that idea.
Definitely it's not. We don't see deals like that very often where it has all those things lined up. But
let's do more. Let's do more of those deals.
We wanted to get in, and it worked out.
Absolutely. What's funny is that same seller has more properties that he wants to get rid of right now.
Boom, chakalaka.
Yeah.
Here, what's his name and number? I'll give him a call if you guys aren't on that.
So that's the thing, though. You nailed it when you said that other people refied, got the lower interest rate, and now they are wanting to do these seller carrying loan type of things for us and get it at a reduced rate. He's still getting 0.5%.
Yeah.
On how much million?
He only owed like 4.5 million. We're paying 9.5 million.
Yeah. He's winning in so many ways.
He's arbitrage. He's getting 5%.
He's completely arbitraging.
He's only paying 4.5 on the smaller part that's his loan.
Brilliant.
It really is such a win-win. He's very happy. We're very happy.
1% is 45,000. So he's making $22,500 a year just taking your check, depositing it, and writing a check to the bank, smiling while he does it, obviously.
Right.
Maybe buying a cup of coffee on the way. I mean, really, that's the money we all want to make. $2,000 a month just processing your check.
Yes, exactly.
So here's another question. And obviously, I'm not prying about exactly how you got that deal, but in general, how did this deal come to you? In general, I mean, is it
I'm gonna tell you this story because this is my dream come true.
Money.
Back in 2019.
Hold on just 1 second. You guys notice the body language, the tonality, the energy? I'm going to tell you about this story. Go ahead. Let's go.
I'm super excited about it. This is like my dream come true, Bill. In full disclosure, we've obviously been doing real estate for a long time. And back in 2010, Stacy created her own apartment course and started teaching people one-on-one. By the time we got together, I was like, man, one-on-one, that's harsh. That's so not scalable. And then on top of that, I'm doing real estate on the side while doing kids. And you know what? It would be cool if I had a community and a sense of belonging. So boom, all of a sudden we created the Academy back in 2019. And as we watched our students, because we have a very hard, fast rule that, are we gone? Oh, yeah. We have a very hard, fast rule that we don't do deals with our students until they're in year 3. So the way that it progresses for us is we've literally created a university. It's a multifamily university. And when you come in, it's like your freshman year, you're a warrior, you're a gladiator next, then you're an emperor. And by the time you become a centurion, that means you have been doing deals and we have been watching you and coaching you and seeing how good of an operator you are, seeing how good you are at negotiating, seeing how good you are at managing the asset, all of those things. And you become eligible to do deals with us. Wow. So this deal came from one of our centurions, and it was the very first apartment deal. Cause we had done a duplex, actually a single family and a quad with other centurions. So we had this deal brought to us from our centurions that we basically taught them how to do this stuff. And we were like, we are all in, let's do this. And we GP'd with them on this deal. And it was probably the happiest moment in my life because that's why I wanted to create this thing. And that's literally how it came in. So we taught our system to our students year over year. They go out there and do it. So what we've effectively done and what my vision was back then is if we could just create a whole bunch of soldiers that go get the deals using our system that we trust, like sky is the limit for us. And then they just acquire them and we figure out how to print the money with all of our connections. And now we can scale faster. And that's honestly how it happened.
Notice how, for those who are watching, notice how excited she was talking about helping her people. Yes, and they got paid as a result, but it was really the teaching that really got her excited about it. And I think that's called the fruit of your fruit, right? You have an apple tree, it drops an apple on the ground, a seed there plants and creates another tree, and then that has apples. So you create the fruit of your fruit. So congratulations, that's terribly exciting. I wanted to go back and ask, so the how do you distinguish your time between an investor and doing the job? Meaning, yes, you're getting a return for investment, but you're also working to raise money. You're also working to find vendors. You're working to manage your property, your general contractors, your suppliers. Like that doesn't happen for free. Somebody's doing that work. How much that do you do? And how do you determine where's a job end and a business begin and then investors start?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Yeah. Everything. Well, do you want to answer it?
You could go first, and then I'll pepper in what I have to say because I have a lot to say.
Yeah. Jen, it's funny because Jen and I, we obviously we do all of our businesses together, but we really have very different backgrounds. We have very different focuses, and we have completely opposite strengths and interests in business and real estate. So,
but the one thing we're both really good at is raising capital.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. It's because we're good at building relationships.
Yes,
we care about people and but anyway, when it comes down to the business of real estate, when people are trying to we're literally in the process of wrapping up. It might even be tonight. We're wrapping up our first book that we're going to have published.
Wow.
So I was literally just writing.
I can't believe you just told the world that. Now the pressure's on.
That's right. I was just writing about this earlier today, but there's a really big difference between when you're trying to do a DIY approach to real estate versus running it like a business. Jen and I, we do not do real estate where we live. It's not that it's a policy that we will never do it. It's just that for such a long time, we lived where the numbers didn't make sense. So we are 100% accustomed to project managing and leading teams remotely. So there's not very much that there's nothing that we physically do. Everything is about an email, a phone call,
a meeting.
Yeah. We are the ones that understand what the entire picture is. And we know who are the different players that it takes to get things done. And we know how to find them. We know how to vet them. We know how to lead them. So it's not that this takes no time, because I don't want anyone to think like, oh yeah, it's fine. It takes no time. It does take time, but it's a lot less time when you learn to leverage the other professionals who are in the business. And that's what we do. So it's not a job versus a business. For us, it is always and only a business. When we started the academy, that was a little bit more of a job because we had to do, but now we figure out how to work Zoom.
But now we have in the academy, we have a staff of 30. So we don't really have to do anything for the academy other than show up and run events and be there and teach, which has been really fun for us. Yeah. So the way that it works for us, Bill, is we definitely soar with our strengths. We encourage our students to do the same exact thing. We at our events, when we have fulfillment events for the students, we like to joke around about how there's different personality types, right? So Stacy's a sea urchin, and that's somebody who's just like down in the weeds, and you got to kind of pull them up and make them go get air, And then there's the shark. I'm the shark who's like, well, let me go for
I
the
guessed that one myself, by the way.
right? And there's the whale. There's a whale is just like somebody who's very much about community. They're larger than life. They're bringing people along. And then you've got a dolphin, and dolphins are like, they raise capital and they're badass at that, right? So every student identifies with their personality type, and then they know we can put them together and they can network and figure out who does what. And they structure their deals that way with their teams on who's going to do what role. Because we mostly do everything JV. Now, what we will normally do is in our business, before we got to the point where we had centurions that could bring us deals at 2 to 4 units, and then deals from 5 to 50 units, which ended up being 100 units. Before that, we did it. Right. And she was acquisitions, I was rehab, and she was financing. And we just bounced around and we figured it out. But now we've got an acquisition team for 2 to 4 units, and we have one for apartments. And when that happens, and plus we also have a motel. I don't know if you know that, but
yeah. You bought that the last time episode we did. You just closed on it actually, or you just started the rehab, I think, on it at the time.
Yeah. Yep. We finished the rehab on both towers, if you will. They're not really towers. It's a 2-story motel with 2 buildings, but I call them towers because it's got a Stardust sign on it, and I love Vegas. So the whole thing that we do though is we meet with the team. So like we have a meeting every other Friday with our partner who works literally at the motel, runs it for us. And then we also have, Stacy just got off a weekly meeting with the property manager on the 96 unit, but we meet and we talk about and we look at and review metrics and make decisions how to manage the asset. That's really our role. That's what we like to do. And then obviously we raise a lot of capital. We had to raise, we put down 1.9, but we raised 2.9 million. Anyway.
Oh, I said 1.9.
You said 1.9. I was like, it was 2.9 million. Yeah. They're back there doing the math going, wow, they're getting really good.
Yeah, we raised 2.9. Well, it's because we had rehab and yeah, that's right. The math didn't make sense. We raised 2.9 million, almost 3 million.
The way that we look at it, Bill, is like we look at it how you have to manage your investing business. It is a business. And I do like to acknowledge that, and for other people to acknowledge it too, because if you get into, I got to get a deal, and then you just start acquiring deals, but you don't pay attention to them, then you're going to become a motivated seller. And I'm going to step in and negotiate the shit out of you. And and I'm going to negotiate with you until I get the price that I need, right? Because I don't split the difference. I'm going to figure it out. The whole point of getting into the asset is to keep it and make sure it performs. And like, Golem, it's your precious. You want to get as much out of it as you can and get the return for your investors. That's the biggest piece of this. So the way that I look at it is you got to manage an entire pipeline of deals that's coming in and the relationships that bring them, how to assess and analyze, and what are you going to make an offer on, working with financing, lending, raising capital. All of that stuff is just one aspect of the business to acquire a deal. But you've also got to figure out, well, once I have it, and I have to stabilize it, or maybe you don't, maybe it's already stabilized. No matter what, you've got to manage that asset. And then once you flip that into your portfolio, now you got to manage your portfolio too. So you've got to really structure your days, weeks, months, years, quarters by every asset. When am I going to be getting my update on that? And it should be monthly, where you're looking at those things. How is it performing? What are market rents doing? Should I make some moves? Is the property manager on top of this? All of those things go with this. A lot of people just stop with acquiring the asset, and that's the biggest mistake. You've got to think the whole picture all the way through. And once you have one asset and you start getting, because the law of the first deal, it's going to start, the floodgates are going to open. Pretty soon you have 10 deals, and then you're like, oh my God, wow, I have this many deals, or I have this many doors, or I have this many properties now, this many assets. If your asset list is like above 15, you're working, you're doing it full time. You're trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I think there's a misnomer about passive investing. It's really not passive.
Not passive.
It's
if it's passive, then your results will be passive as well.
Exactly. Passive investing is getting 4.9% on your T-bonds, which today are 4.9%, but generally are usually 1 or 2%. A great question from a Facebook user. On multifamily, when you buy 96 units, how do you manage the process of inspections? Do you is that you negotiate an offer, and then during your due diligence, do you inspect all the units? Do the tenants let you in all the units? How does that work?
Such a good question.
It honestly doesn't matter what the size of the property is. So regardless of whether you're talking about a duplex or a 300 unit property, the process is identical. When you are first making your offer, you can call it, when you get into apartments, we call it underwriting. I don't know what everybody in your audience knows. So if I'm explaining too much,
you're perfect. No, you're perfect. Okay. Don't worry about it, dear.
All right. So when we're talking about 2 to 4 unit multifamily, we would say that we're analyzing the deal. When you start talking about apartments, the lingo that we use is that we're underwriting the deal. But Either way, you're analyzing the deal. You don't want to spend too much time. When I was new, like my background's accounting. So of course I want to know every possible detail and spend years and years analyzing it to death before I write an offer.
Sea urchin.
Yeah, sea urchin. And of course it's already under contract with someone else, sharp Jen, who is like, well, I mean, give me some basics. Let me run some numbers. And if it looks good enough, I'll throw an offer in. Most of the time you're making offers, if you're making an offer that makes sense for you, most of the offers don't get accepted. It's a numbers game. So don't burn too many calories trying to make sure every number exactly right. Get the offers in. Once the offer's accepted, whether it's a 3 unit or a 96 unit, you have a period of due diligence. It's part of what you negotiated when you made your offer. So during that period of due diligence, you're looking at everything, including inspection. But strategically, there's certain things. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was new. It took me a couple deals before like light bulb went on. You always want to do the free due diligence first. So free due diligence is things like looking at, depending on the size of the property, looking at the leases and contacting property management and looking on Rentometer to find out what is the market rents. If it's going to be a rehab, getting contractors out there to give you a quote, doing all the financial due diligence, looking at what a property tax is going to be for me once a property is reassessed, if it's going to be reassessed, if it's a market where it does that. What is my insurance going to cost based on what I'm buying it for, which is probably different than what the seller has on it, right? All of that it takes your time, but it doesn't cost money. So you always want to do that stuff first, because if you find out through that process that, well, hold on a second, the seller made it sound like this was a performing property that had all these rents coming in, but looking at the leases, there's nothing about this. This is not even close. I don't want to go spend hundreds or thousands or multiple thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the building, on an inspection because I already know the deal doesn't work, right? So, but if you've done the financial due diligence first, so we say like, hit that hard, hit that fast, then you're going to schedule an inspection. When you do an inspection, again, I don't care whether No, I am conservative, but we also teach people. So we better be freaking conservative because this is people's life savings on the line, right? Every single solitary unit must be inspected. And where I really got that lesson, like hardcore, is in 2004, maybe it was 2005. No, it was in 2004. This guy named Marco I owned a property management company in Detroit. I moved to Detroit. I started a property management company because I was investing there. And he bought a 19-unit building and he inspected 2 of the units. And then he closed on it because it was cash. And how could you lose? It was so cheap. It was $190,000 for 19 units. It seems like you can't lose. And you can absolutely lose. The other 17 units, they weren't all bad, but like 6 of them cost him more than you can imagine. The one unit you don't get into can be the one unit that literally flips the deal from a really good deal to, oh my God, why did I even ever hear the word real estate? So I know that sounds like a little excessive. And some of my students will come back to me later and say, I always thought you were being a little dramatic, but now that I've been through it, no, I'm not.
But she's serious.
But it's true. I always want people to succeed. My journey was so difficult when I started, and I had so many times where if it wasn't what I was meant to do in the world, I know I would have quit. It was too difficult. That is why I'm like so passionate about teaching people, like, do it the right way, which means inspect every unit. So when you say, what do you do? Do you inspect every unit? Yes. It doesn't mean it has to be you. We do everything remotely, but we have an inspector and we have a property manager go into every single unit to make sure we know what we're getting into. And I guarantee you, if you're doing it right, you're going to be able to go and use that information to go back and renegotiate the deal.
We we do everything remotely, right? So, and we teach our students the same thing in the academy. We just literally had students that they had a 16 unit under contract and they did the entire inspection via FaceTime for 3 hours so they could be there and see it. Like there are so many tools and technologies available that you can actually be there without stepping foot into it.
And as an agent, I always tell people the more inspection you do, A, you're safe, or B, there's a defect that you either are going to regret or we can renegotiate. And if you do it, we document it, odds are the seller has to sell the next buyer is going to see the same thing.
Close it, yeah.
So what, and that's why I always disclose everything back to the seller. Oh, by the way, we found this, we found that. And the agent said, why do you keep sending all this to me? Because when we come back and ask for a concession, you can't say, oh, we'll sell it to the next buyer and they won't know. We've documented that we sent it all to you. So I don't think you can over inspect or over check something like that. It's very good advice. Okay, real quick, because we're going to wrap up shortly, but if you're on the call, Zoom call, feel free to jump a question in the chat box or raise your hand. I'd love to have you come in and talk to Jen and Stacy. They're obviously passionate, obviously successful, and great coaches, and want to get a chance to take advantage of that. If you're watching live stream, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, I see a bunch of you on right now. Feel free to put your question in the chat box. If I catch it live, I'll ask it now. Otherwise, either I'll get it later or I'll send it back to Jen and Stacy, and we'll figure out which one of them answers the question, and they'll answer it later. And then before we go any further, I just got from them the link, and I'm a little late putting on the box, but if you want more, they have the introducing their cash flow Coliseum. Now, you talked about warriors, gladiators, centurions. I noticed a little theme here. I went to school at USC, where the Trojans, and we play football in the Coliseum. Yes. So what's the deal with the Coliseum, the cash flow Coliseum? What's that all about?
Well, the first things first, I am an absolute USC fan. That's not why, though. My favorite movie is Gladiator, and I love all things related to Rome. I've studied that. So that has just been a staple for me, that you got to be a gladiator when you get in there. And when you're in the Coliseum, Stacy has the shirt on. It's not a spectator sport. When you're in the center, you
never looked at Stacy's shirt. Just for the record, I'm not looking at her shirt. I never looked at her shirt.
It says
I'm still not looking at it.
MFREA.
I don't know. I can't see it. I'm not looking.
Multifamily real estate.
I'm locked on her right now. I'm not looking at her shirt.
It's hilarious.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's where it came from. That's where it came from.
Okay. And so so that's where it came from. That's the branding idea. But what's the actual product or service that you're offering here? People want to get involved with you guys. This is the latest program. I know you guys do them, and you make them fun and interesting. And I think that's what attracts me to refer people to you. Is it should be fun. It should be interesting also. What is it about the Cash Flow Coliseum that's an opportunity for people?
So the Cash Flow Coliseum it's our very, very entry level training. So it's like our foundations training. You get in there and it's focused on 2 to 4 units. And when you get in there, there's a monthly subscription. So there's no contract. You can cancel at any time. And as long as you have that subscription going on, you have full on access to the course, and you get to go to a free weekly coaching call. Not a free weekly coaching call, but it's part of the subscription. It's a weekly group coaching call with everybody else that's in the Coliseum. So you have the opportunity to network and do deals together and continue doing JVs, but getting your foot into the door. And the best part about it is, because it's entry level, what it's designed to do is, because it's less than $500 a month. I think it's less than a car payment. And we're actually thinking about doing an opportunity where you could just buy the course a la carte, and then make the monthly payment to come to the coaching calls. So we're kind of toying around with that one, playing with that one. But for right now, the way that it works is, you know what? I think it's like $297 for your first month now. And then it's $497 a month after that. And you get access to the entire course, and you get to come to the weekly group coaching calls and network with everybody to do deals. And it's our entry level. Eventually what will happen is, your guide is that you come in here, you start making those payments, but you start learning and you start implementing, and you get your first asset, and that asset, the cash flow from that asset, can continue to pay for your Coliseum subscription. So you still have access to that Coliseum network to do more and more deals. And eventually you'll upgrade into the point where you're in warrior status, which is now you're in 6 months with a one-on-one coach that looks at everything you've done, analyzes, well, here's your resources, here's your goals. This is probably the best path for you, and gets you on the path to continue to go. Then when you become a gladiator, you're there for a whole year and you're doing it and you continue to scale. You can either go into gladiator as in apartments and graduate from 2 to 4 and go into apartments. That's usually what the route is for people. They come in, they learn 2 to 4, and then they upgrade and graduate into apartments and continue to scale. That's the path. So this is the very first stepping stone. It's how to get in there and learn our system, how to invest anywhere in the US from anywhere in the world, as long as you have Wi-Fi and a phone or a laptop. And it's the best entry level. There's foundation courses out there that are like $8,000 a year.
Nice.
And this one, you can, it's so actionable. It's so actionable. You take action, get an asset, starts paying that monthly payment for you. Now you're tapped in.
Well, for the record, I'm not getting affiliate income. I'm not involved in this other than I think they're great. I tell people who are brand new, you need three things. You need a coach or a leader or a mentor or mentors, depending on if it's one or two. You need a system or plan or program or methodology. And you need a community of people because it's going to be tough. And you need people ahead of you to encourage you. You need people behind you that you pull along with you. And you guys really have all three. I think you guys are the coach or leadership. You guys have a clear path and program that you direct people to. And I know you guys have a very active community. I watch you on social media and I enjoy playing along with you guys to some degree and playing on. So I feel very comfortable saying it's a great program. I recommend it highly. I've watched you guys interact with other professionals. I've seen other professionals and how they relate to your business. And obviously any investment, it's a deal by deal situation. You have to fit. I know I looked at a couple of deals and it's not quite my jam. I have kind of very specific criteria, but I certainly admire what you do. And if I had maybe a broader, I'm in real estate already as a business, so I have to be careful about what I do to diversify. But I think what you guys are doing fantastic. Okay, I don't see other questions. I really enjoyed having you guys on here. More information, you can go to the Coliseum Cash Flow, or you can go to the Oh my gosh, my eyes are just out of touch here. Go to the link. It's in the chat box. It's on the YouTube if you're watching it, or text or email me. I'll be glad to send it to you. I can't even see it anymore.
It's okay, Bill.
It's been a lot of fun. And Jen and Stacy, thank you so much for being on here and helping everybody. We really appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you very much.
And for everybody else, again, this is the official podcast of the LA County Real Estate Investor Association. We normally have a live meeting in LA the second Thursday of the month, which would be 2 nights from tonight. But we're not this month because the host event is the Iman Center, which is Muslim, and they're closed for Ramadan. So it'll be the second Thursday in May, which is, I'm scrolling real quickly, May 11th. It's a fantastic program. And I say because I know 2 of the 4 speakers, I should probably getting old. You just forget everything. Deborah Razzo is one of the speakers. She's a colleague of mine. She's been on this program before. And also Jen Maldonado is fantastic. They're both into multifamily investing. They both are about networking. And more importantly, the program on May 11th is about women, empowering women in particular. So it's a free program live. They don't do it online at the Iman Center here in West Los Angeles, 6:30 to 9:30. And before that, there's a vendors expo. There's about 250 people will be there, about 50 vendors on one of them. We live cast it. If you're going to come there, it's free. More information at LAProbate.com, LAProbate.com. So anyhow, thank you all. Again, thanks to Jen and Stacy. It's fantastic having you. Thanks for everybody being on the call today. I'm Bill Gross. I'm at Bill Gross EXP. As always, make today your best day ever. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, ladies.